there are outperformers already. Within Asia, Korea is outperforming. Again, it's still very early in the year. And yes, last year was a poor year. But you've seen memory semiconductors off to a fast start this year. We have been positioned for that. And if you look at the long-term opportunities in Korea, we'll come back to, I presume at some point in Q2, Q3, people will start talking about value up again, shareholder returns again. Nothing is permanent. We try not to extrapolate the present, and we're trying very hard not to do that in China and South Korea in particular. But then if you look at Japan, lots of opportunities everywhere. This inbound M&A angle will only continue. It will go to other parts of the market cap curves in Japan. India, the long-term earnings story is very much intact. Now, whether growth is 7% or 6%, for some people that means a lot. For us, for some people, it means less. But the bottom-up story is very much intact there as well.
Inbound M&A into Japan, activist investors, I get that. But, I mean, you could also say the same thing for the domestic story as well, right? Potential for a lot of M&A at home domestically, ripe for it, in fact, especially as rates rise.
We agree with that. We will see domestic private equity firms get more involved, but then also intra-sector consolidation. That should happen. We have been waiting for that to happen in the pharma space in Japan. It hasn't really.
Is it going to happen in the auto space, given all the troubles we've been talking about over the last several weeks? Honda, Nissan, etc. They're getting killed by the Chinese.
Yes. So the Japanese have the options of getting together in that way. I think it's harder in Germany. I'm less familiar with that market now than I used to be. But in Japan, yes, I think it should happen and will happen. Even some of the ones that are off the radar for now. And it's not just the auto OEMs. We will see it in auto ancillaries, auto parts, the broader
supply chain.
The broader supply chain, power semis, auto semis. We think we can't put an expiry date on this view, but it will happen because we think it should and it has to.
If this is a year of active management and stock selection, then what are the strategies and what are the names that you're watching, who to bet on this year in this region?
Well, we'll start with the markets. China, Japan, and India, we remain very focused on. They are our largest allocations. We allocated more capital to all three of those markets last year. South Korea, I would add to that. Indonesia is a market that is not talked about often, partly because for institutional liquidity reasons, it's not ideal, especially when you have markets like China, India, Japan, and South Korea that offer that kind of liquidity. But I would add Southeast Asia and Indonesia in particular as a market to be investing in for the long term. Now, when you get into that, if you look at the auto supply chain, lots of dislocations in India and Japan in particular. The semiconductor supply chain, it was a poor year for non-NVIDIA supply chain companies in the semiconductor space last year, especially in the second half of the year. You had a lot of hype in the first half, in the first quarter actually. But the SPE names in Japan, we're spending more time there. We had a recent listing in Japan in mid-December last year of a memory company, the last major memory company that will list that is not Chinese. So we're spending time on NAND, that CapEx. There's been basically no NAND CapEx for 2 years now. And over time, the demand will come back. And when that happens, when you've had no investment, prices should at least be stable. They might even go higher. And that would be very accretive to the bottom lines of companies out here that we know.